everybody. Thank you so much for joining us today. My name is Sam Kennedy. I use they, them pronouns, and I am a queer, non binary, transmasculine program director here at Mindr. Mindr Global is an organization that builds belonging in the world's leading workplaces. And today we are thrilled to be joined by Giselle Renata King for a conversation on LGBTQ plus inclusion. Giselle, thanks so much for joining us. Would you like to kick off our 15 minutes together with a quick introduction of who you are, what you do, and maybe how you celebrated Pride this year?
Yeah, I'm happy to be here. Hi, everyone. My name is Giselle. I'm an actor, speaker, and community advocate. I spent 10 years as a firefighter with the FDNY and later became the Director of Communications for the FDNY's Office of Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion. I really celebrated this year. I felt like I needed to after the past couple of years, which have been really rough. So it was full of friends, community, supporting Black trans events and vendors, remembering the Stonewall riots. I was fortunate to speak on a panel for a reminder. We talked about the significance of both Pride and Juneteenth and what engaged allyship looks like for the Black and LGBTQ communities. Living with pride is something I strive to do all year round. I'm a Black queer immigrant living and working in New York. And I feel like there's a lot of struggles that I've had to overcome and also a lot to celebrate, including the fact sitting here with you that we have the space to talk about this and how to talk about supporting the LGBTQ community all year round. So thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And I have to say, that event that you mentioned was fantastic and really spoke to the importance of intersectionality, which I imagine we will get to in this conversation as well.
Absolutely.
But for everybody joining us, if you have questions or thoughts throughout, please do share them in the comments section. We will do our best to incorporate them live. And if we aren't able to get to them during the session, we'll be sure to respond in the comments. But you may be wondering, why are we holding this session on LGBTQ plus inclusion during July? Shouldn't this have happened a few weeks back when we were celebrating Pride Month? And that's exactly what we're hoping to tackle today. How do we continue to prioritize the queer community all year long and not just during June? So Giselle, let's start there.
So it's like, how can we keep the goal of equity going all year round, right? Because when we do that, we're honoring the fact that everyone deserves kindness. Everyone is worthy of respect and equal rights. So we're talking about something that's critical, especially for underrepresented voices. The same patterns, we see happen with Black History Month, Women's History Month, AAPI Heritage Month. It can start to feel like the only time your identity or experience is acknowledged is during this small designated month or margin, right, in the calendar year. You see where I'm going with this. Pride Month was wonderful, right? But now what? Every July, there's this abrupt pivot that happens. Corporations change their logos from the rainbow back to the original colors. Employers, stop holding LGBTQ related events, and you see the watch list on various networks and on the webs, and the reading list stops circulating. So it's great that organizations want to celebrate Pride with high visible gestures like rainbow logos or floats at a parade, but that can't be where the effort ends, right?
Absolutely, I couldn't agree more. And there are plenty of things that organizations can do outside of the month of June. So how do we keep that momentum going? What are some things that organizations can do to be accountable for that meaningful, sustainable, continuous queer inclusion all year round?
Right. At the very minimum, right, there should be employee resource groups in place or LGBTQ affinity groups. Not just one, if you have the ability, many, because again, we're intersectional beings and we need to be mindful that the LGBT community is extremely varied, and it's so meaningfully simple to be mindful of that and the ways in which our identities and our struggles intersect with others. Yeah, so you can host or attend events in support of the community, like Trans Day of Remembrance in November. You can follow organizations on social media speaking out on behalf of the LGBTQ plus community. Gestures like these are available to us all year round. You know.
Absolutely. And I love that you called out there are so many other important dates and milestones: Trans Day of Remembrance, National Coming Out Day. So if you do need an occasion to celebrate, there are plenty of others in addition to just the everyday celebration.
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah, I love those. I think those are great tips. And there are also other, systemic ways, if you're more operationally minded, that you can look for gaps in your organization to address. So, what systems do you have in place for employees to share their preferred name and pronouns? You'll see we have our pronouns listed right by our names on our display here. You can do that on pretty much any whether it's Zoom or Teams. You can add your pronouns to show up right next to your name. What kind of healthcare coverage is available through your benefits, and is it LGBTQ inclusive? When you're looking at pathways to parenthood or gender affirming services. And then I love what you said about supporting nonprofits, thinking about vendor and supplier diversity. Where is your organization spending their dollars? Can we funnel some of that back into the community, whether that's a service that you're seeking or a restaurant to cater an event? There are so many LGBTQ owned businesses and services. So I think these are really helpful places for organizations to start. What about as individuals? How can we practice active allyship ourselves?
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, we're such a varied community. Like I said before, so much diversity within. I feel like it's about staying proactive and educating ourselves about the ways in which we're different and the ways in which we're the same. And using your platform to speak out about to speak up about the experiences of LGBTQ people. Sometimes it's uncomfortable to acknowledge our privilege, but no matter how uncomfortable, your privilege can be used to help others who don't have the same access. This can be having someone join you on a panel that comes from an underrepresented community, such as a Black trans man, or if you're typically the loudest voice at meetings, insisting that input from marginalized communities be represented inclusive of the LGBTQ plus community. It's not just about having a voice, it's also about ensuring continued visibility, like we said, all year round for the LGBTQ plus community. And there are many, many ways to do that. Our community, right, includes so many unique experiences and identities. Allyship isn't just for cisgendered and straight folks. So these tips are for everyone, right? So inclusive language, not making assumptions, and being a vocal advocate. Addressing the gaps where you see them, and helping to lift up underrepresented voices.
That's so true. I love that point. I think often when we talk about allyship to queer folks, it can sound like we are talking just to people who are not part of the community. But as you said, there are so many diverse identities and experiences represented within, even just the acronym itself: lesbian, gay, bisexual, transgender. You can even keep going: intersex, asexual, right? That there are so many different experiences that as LGBTQ folks, we can also show up for each other. And allyship for me, and somebody showing up as an ally for me might look different than what it looks like for you.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's important that we acknowledge our differences, and find a way to work with each other. And also, as queer folk, remember that just because we are queer or we're a part of the LGBTQ plus community, that even though we may be marginalized, some of us still have some privilege and can band together to help someone who's a little bit, doing not as well off as us. So it's important to keep in mind.
Always. Yeah, words to live by in any space.
Mhm.
Um,
And
what
there's so many queer organizations that you can support, that you can donate to all year round. You can follow them on the gram. You can figure out which ones resonate with you. I just think it's important to keep that presence, that visibility going all year round.
Absolutely. And that's a great tip too, whether it's a national organization like the Trevor Project or the Trans Lifeline, or a more local organization. Just about every city has an LGBTQ center that you can volunteer at or donate to. That's a great suggestion.
Yeah.
Um, well, is there one kind of tip or action that you would like to see people take that either resonates for you, when people are trying to show up for you and include you, that's really meaningful, or something a bit more general that kind of anybody can take to their organization?
I don't know, something that really makes me happy and makes me feel like there's progress going on in the world is when someone is very mindful of my pronouns and honors them, remembers them, and checks in with me about, how I feel about them using them or what I'm feeling like today, because it can change, right? We're not necessarily always going to identify the same way for our whole lives. People grow. So I love it when people continually check in with me about what my pronouns are.
Absolutely, yeah. Going back to not making assumptions, um, and especially seeing, that you use she and they pronouns, that one may resonate more, at
Mhm.
any given time than another, and so not assuming which one to use.
Exactly.
Yeah, I can relate.
And how about you, Sam? Is there? I can relate. I see that. Yeah.
Yeah, I think language is a big one because it's something that comes up in every space, every day. Um, you know, even something as simple as when I'm at an event or I'm at a conference and the speaker says, "Ladies and gentlemen," right?
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
well intentioned, a very typical greeting that immediately, whether intentionally or not, can make me feel excluded and like I don't belong there or that I'm not being seen. So yeah, I think language is one of the easiest. Sometimes it's difficult. It certainly takes practice, but maybe one of the simplest and most applicable things that we can all strive to be more inclusive in.
Right. Yeah. And it goes back to what I was talking about before about just the mindfulness of that. Things that don't seem like grand gestures, but over and over again, they can seem like microaggressions, right? They can seem like something that, is so easy for us to correct in our language or in the way that we see things, but they make a huge difference in someone's life and about that visibility, right? Because as someone who's cisgendered, may have a little bit more visibility all year round around their lifestyle, around who they want to, how they want to present as, or who they may want to go to bed with. But it seems that going back to the point from the very beginning, uh, just 1 month may not be, is not enough, right? It's not enough for human rights. It's not enough for equality. It's not enough for kindness and visibility. It needs to be all year round.
Absolutely. And we got a great question in the comments. As an ally to the LGBTQ plus community, what kind of volunteer opportunities do you think are the most impactful to take part in?
I think working with children, volunteering maybe at the LGBTQ plus centers in your neighborhood. There's a great one in the city, and yeah, because children need to know that they need good models for how to behave, for what's okay, and they need to see that they have allies out there that are willing to support with them and work with them, and it's just a great example. So I think me personally, I would volunteer. If I was trying to be an ally to the queer community, I would volunteer to work with LGBTQ plus children, and also I think that within our community, some of the identities that are the most marginalized are the trans Black communities. And so, if any people in our community really need help and really need support, volunteering with organizations that support them, for sure.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. Thank you so much, Giselle, for making the time to share your insights and to have this conversation today.
Mm.
Let's keep this momentum going. Again, Pride should not be siloed to 1 month. It should be all year long. So thank you all for taking the time to tune in. And we hope that you are leaving with a tangible action that you can take to foster LGBTQ plus inclusion at your workplace. For more tips, you can check out Mindr's guide that will be linked in the comments. It includes 5 key ways that you can support queer inclusion all year long. So thank you again, and we hope to see you next time.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Of course.